Great, cool. So welcome to the 75-minute Yin Yoga Nidra. You will need a yoga strap, bolster, cushions, blankets, many items, the more the merrier. And come on over to your mat. We're going to start in a seated position, but we're going to aim to be going into a child's pose. So you might find that you want to be in a kneeling position to start this practice, or if this is really uncomfortable for you, come into a seated position, whether your legs are crossed or legs are extended, something that you can comfortably sit in. If you're in a kneeling position, you might even want to place a little block underneath your bottom in between the heels, just to give your hips a little elevation. And then resting the hands, palms face down as a gesture of grounding here. When we turn our palms up, it's about energizing, and in many times when we come to the practice of yin, it's really about kind of turning down to the earth, grounding our energy, coming into a much more slower, quieter pace, bringing that energy inwards. From here, closing down your eyes and observing the breath. So try not to change it. Try to leave it alone. And this can be difficult, I know, I find it difficult myself. And try and let go of how you think it should or shouldn't be. And see if you can bring awareness as to what it actually is. And in this way, it's kind of a gesture of us giving up the need to control or to make something or to manipulate it. So much energy that we spill out in doing this, and we do it in all different ways in our days, in our lives. This need to make something a certain way or for it to be how we want it to be. And actually there is a lightness to letting go and just simply kind of sitting back and just seeing what's really happening, what's really going on. And when we do this, we let go. And it can be difficult. So just acknowledge if you find that tricky in some way, and that's fine. And as your awareness becomes a little bit more acquainted to your breath pattern, to the flow of breath coming in and out, and the rhythm, allow yourself to move your awareness a little bit wider now, so you not only observe the breath, but also the movement that the breath creates. And again, let it be. You're not trying to create movement here, but instead just observing and seeing what movements you experience. And again, this is a process of letting it be. It doesn't have to be a certain way. It just is what it is. And see if you can accept whatever you discover, whatever you notice. This idea of acceptance we explored a little bit in the start of the year. Acceptance really is an invitation of self-compassion and, in a way, kind of self-love, really. Because we're not reinforcing that we need to change. We're not trying to make something different. We're just allowing it to be how it is. And this is the human condition. This is what it means to be a human, that we are a polarity of nuances. We're so mixed in our temperaments. We have lightness and darkness. A friend of mine I spoke to earlier, she talked about this idea of when we open ourselves up to others and we start the process of falling in love, we learn much more about a person. And ultimately you feel more towards them, but in that process you also start to notice some of the things that irritate you or you don't necessarily like so much. And maybe we can have that same, I guess, awareness when we think of it about ourselves. Like, we are nuances, we are a mixed bag of temperaments and emotions and feelings, and that is totally fine. It's totally normal. And maybe for our practice tonight, if you want to set an intention, or if you have something that you'd like to set an intention for, go for that. But maybe it could be to have a little bit more acceptance and awareness of yourself as a whole, as a mixed bag. And in a way, can we love the whole of ourselves? Can we accept the whole of ourselves? In this very human way. So you can start now by taking a deeper breath, expanding all the way down into your belly. And exhaling, letting out a sigh or a sound. Again, taking another deep breath in. Sighing out. And maybe here, just noticing what a relief it feels like to let go of the need to control. And instead just letting it be, sitting back and observing. Let's take one more big breath like this. Bring the hands towards the heart space. Take a moment here. Dedicate your practice tonight to someone, something, or whatever it is that feels right for you. And then gently rest the hands down. Blinking the eyes open. Welcome back. So whether you're seated or if you're in a kneeling position, you can start to come into child's pose. So depending on the floor that's beneath you, you might want to put a blanket underneath your knees here. And we're going to start in a wide-legged child's pose. I really like to bring the bolster in between the legs and then lay down on top of it. It's a very comfortable variation for me. You might prefer to have the bolster a little bit further away and rest your forehead on it. You might also prefer to have no bolster and just simply rest your forehead to the mat, or even your forearms. I'll let you decide which variation feels most appropriate for your body. And then when you're ready, coming down into that chosen position. And we're going to begin here for 5 minutes. So closing down your eyes if you haven't done so already. This helps to bring about a little bit more attention and our awareness internally on the inside, allowing our senses to heighten, the sense of touch and feeling into your body. And I know I've said this before, and I'm no doubt will say it once again, but when we come into yin yoga, we don't use our body to get into the pose. We use the pose to get into our body. What that means is that it's the shape of the pose that brings about this sensation, this physicalness. We experience subtle change in the fascia. Maybe it's a compression, maybe there's stretch, maybe there's even twisting happening. And this sensation allows us to get into our bodies, to feel and experience the nuances within our bodies. And it's through the pose that we start to notice where feels spacious, where feels tight. Really, these subtle signs and signals that the body is telling us, giving us this feedback. And there's really nothing for you to do once you come into the pose. It's not about doing. And just like we did at the start of the practice when we observed the breath, it's about letting it be, taking that step back, not physically, but metaphorically, and observing, seeing sensation, interpreting the signals of the body, and just being present. And we've got about 30 seconds more here. So try not to wish for the end. Try to be present. And very slowly starting to take a couple of deeper breaths in. And using the natural increase of heart rate from the deeper breath to start to gently release from the pose. So slowly make your way back up, nice and gently. If you've added the bolster in, move it to one side, and then coming onto all fours. Bringing the knees underneath the hips and just staying here in tabletop. You could let your head hang if that feels nice for the neck. And notice which parts of your body feel most alive, most tingly. And just observing the rebound of the pose or the echo of the pose. This is where we feel the stimulation dissipate. And you might find that stillness feels really nice here, so you can sense more, or you might feel that there's some movement that would help you. Could just be sensitively, gently swaying the hips. Could be curving and flexing the spine. There is no wrong or right way to move, and equally movement isn't essential. Stillness is also a wonderful way to feel the rebound. We're going to be here for another minute or so. Just giving yourself a little bit more time to explore in stillness or in movement. And then coming back into stillness, back into your tabletop position. Okay. From here, we're going to come into thread the needle with the left hand, reaching the left arm up. And then exhale, threading the needle through. So in this pose, if you tend to find that your neck is really like lifted off the ground, or you find it really tricky, you could also rest that left shoulder onto a bolster. This can be quite nice and just a bit more supportive for the head and the shoulder. You might find that you're totally fine to come all the way down. In which case, if that's you, to keep the hips above the knees and resting here for 3 minutes. In yin, it's in some ways the kind of practice or the art of doing nothing. And if we consider this just for a moment, sometimes for many of us, the art of doing nothing can be so tough, so tricky. When we experience something we don't like, we look away or we block or we delete or whatever it is, there's generally a reaction, which is that we turn away from it. Or if there's something that we do really like, we move towards it, we want more of it, we want to have more of it, whatever it might be. Whereas in yin, it's practicing non-reaction, it's practicing no reaction. You do nothing. You feel a sensation which is somewhat uncomfortable. Can you stay with that? Can you not react to it, but just be present to it? And so I invite you here just to notice, if you can, what comes up for you. Sometimes we can be quite self congratulating if we feel something feels really good, if it's a good stretch. And in that moment, is it that you push forwards? Maybe you move actually beyond your boundary because you're kind of chasing that high or that adrenaline that we sometimes get from stretching. Is it possible for you in that moment to try not to chase the high, but to just be equanimous about it? And then on the other side of it, if you experience a sensation that doesn't feel good, again, rather than moving away from it or shying away from it, of course, if it's extremely painful, then that is a cue from the body to move out. But in the case that there's just some level of discomfort, it's not painful, but just we feel it's uncomfortable, can you equally be with that? Can you be present to that? Can you practice the art of doing nothing? Okay. I'm going to ask you now to gently release. Coming all the way back up, lifting the left arm up. And then placing that hand down. We're going to come straight into the other side. Inhale, right arm reaches up. Exhale as you thread it through. And again, just noticing where you sit, on which side of the spectrum do you lean into? Do you lean towards chasing the high, the stretch, or backing away from your edge. Slowly, let's start to release from this side. Reaching that right arm all the way up. On the next, I'll take that hand down. Okay. From here, let's just take a little moment again in tabletop. You can relax the head here, either in stillness or movement. And when you're ready, let's start to slide that left foot forwards, placing it just on the outside of your pinky. Ankle and the knee stack on top of one another. Coming into dragon, so if that back knee is feeling a little bit sensitive, I'll give you a little trick you can do, which is quite nice. So you tuck the back toe under, lift off the back knee, bring the cushion underneath the top of the knee, so there's now no pressure in that back knee. So the cushion is just sort of above the kneecap, as it were. You could also put the cushion on under the knee too. Okay, and then holding here in your dragon, and relaxing the head, and letting the hips sink. And if this is a bit much on your wrist, you could always come to your forearms. And if there's any pain that you experience in the lower back, just try to activate that right glute a little bit more, and it just helps to protect the lower back so you're not compressing too much into it. And just allowing the sensation in the joint, embracing that sensation, whatever it might look like. Okay, for this last minute, we're just going to bring a little bit more of a lateral movement. So you can walk your hands off to the right side of your mat and relax your head here. Okay. Slowly, let's start to bring the hands back underneath the shoulders. Tuck your back toe under. Okay, start to activate the back leg by lifting off the back knee, coming up into a little runner's lunge, and swivel the back heel down, and then turn the left toe so you come to the long side of your mat. So from here, you can use your hands just to bring your bolster, and you want to place it underneath your shoulders. You could add a cushion on top and even a block on top. And we're going to come into a little wide-legged forward fold. So it's a kind of dangling pose, but we're just in a wide-legged variation. If you want to, if the block is helpful, maybe it's not, just resting the forearms here and folding forwards. And if you can here, try not to lean too far forward into your toes. So you also feel like the weight comes back, and it's almost as if you're pushing the heels back a little bit. And we're going to be here for 3 minutes. If for whatever reason this doesn't feel comfortable, you feel a little bit vulnerable in this position, equally you don't have to have your legs so wide. You could be just in a forward fold with the feet underneath the hips. You could just heel toe your feet a little bit closer together. And equally, if the lower back is tends to be a little bit more tighter for you, maybe just actually have a little soft bend in your knees here, and that will help to bring more of an opening into the lower back versus the hamstrings. And of course, if when you get into the pose, you feel like you're ready to add more length into the backs of the legs, and you just simply feel for pushing the knees back, and you'll notice that there's a strong sensation that comes when you do that. But otherwise, having a little bend in your knees. You might not need the bolster, you might not need the block, but it's there just to add a little bit more support so that you're not having to balance so much on your feet. You've got a little bit of support from the head and the forearms. And again, try and keep the weight back into the heels. Okay. Let's slowly come up. You can come up quite slowly here. I'm aware that we've been in a forward fold, so it might be a little bit dizzy. Just bring your head up and look forward towards the front. And then very slowly here, we're going to start to bring ourselves all the way back into that runner's lunge position. And then stepping the back foot and folding over the thighs. Really nice. From here, start to bend your knees, sink your hips towards the ground. Take your hands back one by one and coming into seated. Okay. We're going to come into a little twisted shoelace. So let's bring that right leg underneath and the left foot over. So little twisted legs. And if it's possible for you to bring that knee on top of the right knee, you could work with that variation. So here, for example, if that's too much, you could have the ankle resting onto the knee. So it's a little bit, it's not, the knees aren't stacked, they're just a little bit further away. And in this pose, this is where you'll need your yoga strap or your belt or whatever you're working with. So just grab hold of that. And leveling out the pelvis. And so with the right leg underneath, we're going to take the right arm behind. And then with your left hand, take hold of your strap. We're going to bring that behind us. And then you can start to walk your fingertips towards one another, coming into a little Gomukhasana. Try and keep the spine nice and long here. And so there's an energetic kind of direction of the top elbow pointing up and the bottom elbow pointing down. And we'll stay here for 2 minutes. Nice long straight spine, closing down the eyes. And just make sure that your neck is also an extension of your spine, so you're not crooking the neck forward, you're not bowing the head here. And there should be a softness to the pose. It's going to be quite an active position, I guess, for yin class. But see if you can make sure that your glutes are soft and that your thighs are soft and that your feet are still soft. So there's still the qualities of yin in this pose, even though it's a little bit more active. Okay, really nice. Couple more breaths here. And then let's release the hands. Let go of your strap. Really nice. Just take a little rotation of the shoulders. So turning your palms open here. So let me move that out of the way. Turning your palms open here and just closing them, opening and closing. So you just feel that little kind of rotation in the shoulders. So the right arm, there was an internal rotation. The left arm, there was an external rotation. So it's almost as if we're just giving the shoulder joints a little bit of counter twisting or counter rotation. Good, really nice. Okay, so from here, let's come into a little side stretch. So right hand comes to the mat, inhale, left arm up. Legs stay exactly where they are. Closing down the eyes. If it is available to you, you could reach that hand a little bit further away and let the forearm rest down. That can feel really nice, but just make sure that that left sit bone isn't peeling away. And if you want, with that top arm now, you could bend the elbow and just place the hand around the back of the head. So the elbow is almost just kind of resting on the inside of the head here. And relax your head. Really nice. Last breath here. Gently, slowly use your hands to support yourself as you come all the way back up. I'm going to take this now into a little twist. Legs stay exactly where they are. Right arm crosses over. You can take hold of the knee here. You could just simply open your palm and push the forearm to the outside, and then just finding a gentle twist here over the shoulder. And you're really not forcing this, you're just allowing the body to open gently. We're going to be here for 1 minute. And again, we take that step back, letting go of the need for it to be a certain way and just allowing us to observe and see it as it is. Not how we want it to be, but as it is. The sensation, the feeling that this pose brings us, that opportunity to get into our bodies, to feel embodiment. And that comes from not controlling it. In fact, we have to surrender in order to feel it. We have to let go. And when we do, it's such a relief, such a weight. Okay, slowly let's start to unravel. Okay, so legs change slightly here. We're going to come into fire logs. So with the lower leg, start to bring the shin so it's parallel to the top of the mat. Options here. Taking hold of the ankle and the foot. It might be really uncomfortable for you to put the ankle on top of the foot. If that's you, bring the foot forwards. And so the right shin is parallel and the left shin is slightly off. If it's okay and you feel comfortable with both shins parallel, and there's not too much on that right hip, stay here. I'm going to take a slightly different variation. And what's quite nice to do here is just to bring your bolster or a cushion in front so that we can then fold into the pose a little bit. And if you wanted to here, you could also add a little block on top of the bolster to support the head. And we're going to be here for about 2 minutes. Maybe just here, just for a moment, yin is so much about reflection. What does it mean to you to do nothing? How does that land in your psyche? What kind of comes up for you when you let go and practice doing nothing? Is it a relief? Or maybe it feels somewhat lazy, like on some level it's not okay to just do nothing. How does it land for you? About 10 seconds more here. And then slowly start to release from this pose. Okay. Take the soles of the feet to the mat. I'm going to come to the back of the mat just so it's a bit easier to demonstrate, but by all means you can come to the front of the mat. Come back up onto all fours into tabletop. And just letting the head relax here. And just observing any sensation as we experience a little bit of space in between each pose, the transitionary point. And then slowly let's start to bring that right foot now to the outside of the pinky, coming into our dragon on the other side. And of course, if you want to add that little trick into the knee, just bringing the knee slightly further back, tucking the toes under, and then untuck the toe. And this is lovely because it just takes the weight out of that knee. Relaxing your head. And of course, if the wrists feel too much, you could always come to the forearms. You could always place your bolster underneath your hands, so you give yourself a little bit of height. Letting the sensation come. Okay, so just going to walk the hands over now to the off the mat. Legs stay exactly where they are. Relax the head. So the last minute here. Okay. Let's walk the hands back underneath the shoulders. Tuck the back toe under. So activate the back leg by driving through the heel. Lift up off the knee, coming into a little runner's lunge. Swivel the back heel down. Turn the right toes in, so both feet placed towards the long side of the mat. slide your bolster underneath your shoulders. Maybe you add a cushion or a block here. If you want to here, you can always heel toe your feet a little bit closer. And then coming into your supported wide-legged dangling pose. And again, just remember here, have a little bend in the knees. If the hamstrings, are screaming, just that little bend can be such a gift. And keeping the weight back here into the heels. And you might find this time round you perhaps need one item left. You might feel like there's actually a little bit more length in the spine coming into it second time round. In the last 30 seconds here. Maybe you want to add a little bit more length into the hamstrings for this last moment. Maybe you find where you are. Remembering you're not pushing too far. You're not holding back or backing away too much either. It's kind of this balance between avoidance and acceptance. Okay, slowly let's start to lift the head. Use your hands here, hands on the bolster, or hands on the cushion, whatever you're on. Take a couple of breaths. Look forward here for a bit more stability. And then let's start to bring ourselves all the way back into that runner's lunge. And then stepping the back foot to join the front. Folding, relaxing the head. And then inhale as you lift the chest. Bend the knees, sinking down into a little squat position. And then reach one hand back and the other coming into seated. Okay, so this time we're going to come into our twisted roots on the other side. So the left leg comes under this time. The right foot comes to the outside of the knee. So I turn so you can see. Right leg comes under. Left foot comes over. If you can get the knees to stack, no worries. If it's more comfortable to be like this. From here, take hold of your strap. We're going to do the same as we did on the other side. So left leg is under, right arm comes in, left arm comes up. Walking your hands down towards one another, straightening out the spine, and we're going to be here for 2 minutes. Spine is long. Making sure that that right hip is grounded. Close down the eyes. Bernie Clark always says in all of his books around yin yoga, if you're feeling it, you're doing it. If you're feeling it, you're doing it. Sometimes we question ourselves so much. Am I doing it right? Should it be like this? Am I in the right position? maybe just for a moment here, just acknowledge that if you can feel something, you're doing it. What a relief. Okay, take a breath in. Energizing the whole of the spine, long from the tailbone to the crown of the head. Spine is erect. And then release the strap. Release your hands down. Fingertips to the mat. Turn your palms open. Turn the palms up. Little tiny external rotation. And then turn the palms in. So you're just simply turning your hands open and closing them. Just to feel that little kind of massaging of the shoulder joint. All right, really nice. Okay, place the left palm to the mat. Inhale the right arm up, coming into a little side stretch. Keep anchoring down through that right leg. Arching over. As I said on the other side, if you have got space here and you want to bring that left forearm to the mat without that right hip peeling, go for it. And then with that top arm, just bending the elbow, relaxing the head. Resting the upper arm to the outside of the head. So you get a little stretch for your neck here as well. Okay. Slowly release that top hand down to the mat. And then use your both hands to push yourself, coming all the way back up. A beautiful side stretch for that right side. And we come into a little counter twist. Left arm comes over, forearm to the outside of the knee. Gently twisting here, looking over the shoulder. And again, you're not forcing the twist. The body will naturally unravel. Just setting up the conditions for that to happen. Okay, gently start to unravel. Okay, so with the legs now, we're going to bring the leg underneath. So the shin is parallel to the top of the mat. Take hold of your right ankle. So just test what it's like here. You could bring the ankle onto the top of the knee. If that feels way uncomfortable for the hip, bring the foot forwards. So there's not such of a external rotation. if it feels all right for it to be there. It's not uncommon for one side to feel more open than the other. Certainly my right hip is a little bit more open than the left. And then bringing your bolster forwards, grabbing a block to support the head, and then gently coming into the pose. We're going to be here for 2 minutes on this side. Okay. On an inhale, gently re-energize your body. And slowly start to release, coming out from this pose. Gently unravel, bring both soles of the feet to the mat. And then from here, actually, we'll take the bolster behind, laying it long ways. And you can add a little block or a couple of cushions, either a cushion on top of to support the neck, or just by simply placing a block underneath. And you might want 2 blocks just to give you a little bit more gradient. And then from here, gently going to lay the length of the spine against the bolster. So we get a lovely opening here for the shoulders. An option is to open the knees in Baddha Konasana, so the soles of the feet together. If that for whatever doesn't feel quite right, if we've done a lot of hip opening, maybe you just simply want to extend the legs. And placing any blankets here, and we'll actually stay in this position, this shape for Shavasana. So when you're ready, coming into your variation, either Baddha Konasana with the soles of the feet together or legs extended, whatever feels most supportive. And then again, coming back to this art of doing nothing and embracing the practice of doing nothing. Letting go of the need to control, to make it a certain way. And noticing what it feels like. It's such a relief when it can be whatever it is, if it is just whatever it is. And in this same way of allowing it to be what it is, it's the same approach of acceptance. You accept yourself, you see the nuances. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's kind of a green card to show up and be a total asshole or whatever, but more in the sense of that kind of internal dialogue that we often have with ourselves, where we create these conditions where we need to do something in order to be valued or accepted, where our effort is marked in a way, and if we're not doing something, then we're not valid. And that is an utter illusion. It's a disillusion. Doing nothing, giving yourself the time and the space to just be, to connect with your body. Allowing the space to do nothing can often be the time when we feel our intuition, that inner wiser voice, gets a little bit louder. It has space to speak up. This can be a time when we get clear ideas, clarity about how we approach something, the next steps forwards, just by giving yourself permission to do nothing. We'll start to bring attention now back to the breath. Noticing the breath as it is, not changing it. Letting it be how it needs to be. And then we'll take a little journey, moving the mind's awareness throughout the body. Take your awareness now to the top of the head. And down from the top of the head, as if there was almost a kind of light showering you, traveling down the brow, down the back of the head, down your ears, down past the eyes and the bridge of the nose, down the cheeks, all the way down to your earlobes, your upper lip, your lower lip, the cheeks, your chin and your jaw, passing down now towards the back of your neck and around your throat, down your collarbone, around the back of the shoulders and down the top of your shoulders, down the arms, all the way down to the elbows, forearms, the wrists, your palms and down to your fingertips, all the way down the armpits, the ribs, the back, upper back, down your waist, down the breasts, down the abdomen, down, 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 traveling down the upper hip, down past the groin, down the glutes, down the thighs, down, down past the legs, the knees, the calves, shins, down into the ankles, down the soles of the feet, all the way down to your toes, down. Sensing your body resting in stillness. Sensing the body being breathed rhythmically. Effortlessly. Drawing a deeper breath. Energize the body with a little bit more breath. As the body is energized with a little bit more breath, start to move your fingertips and the toes. Stretch and release the muscles in the hands and the feet. And then the arms and the legs. And then find a way to stretch and release the muscles in the whole of your body. Take a big stretch, the biggest stretch you've taken all day, whole body stretching. Maybe reaching in your arms, pointing your toes, everything awake, everything waking up and alive. And then rolling over to rest onto one side. Slowly come back up to seated. Gather your hands back in towards the heart space and come back to however you dedicated your practice tonight. To whatever you dedicated it to. And if it was this idea of accepting and perhaps loving some of the humanistic nuances that we very much are, take a deep breath in and exhaling out. Namaste. Thank you, everybody.